Hey, I'm Robin, and you're watching Radical Reviews, the show where I play some games, and then I talk about some games. Whether you're 6 years old or you're 60 years old, chances are you've had encounters with something Disney related. Maybe it's one of their massive theme parks, their movies, TV shows, comic books, toys, or yeah, you guessed it, video games. Disney have done basically everything there is to do, except for cars. Still waiting on that Disney automobile to take you across the country with only the power of imagination. But while we wait for that to happen, there's tons of other Disney related products to check out. Like this interactive video game title from the 20th century. It's with Donald and Maui Mallard. In the 1990s, Creative Capers Entertainment was the undisputed champions when it came to animation in video game titles. They worked mostly on interactive learning games for Disney, and holy shit do I remember these things. Aladdin's Activity Center was my favorite. God, I played this so damn much. Try again, okay? Wait, that's the first line that pops into my head? I must have been really fucking terrible at this.
Try again, okay?
Also, the Lion King one. Yeah, sneaking up on Zazu. This imagery is burned into my memory, man. They also created the animations for Mickey Mania, which is said to have set a new standard for animation in video game titles. Disney realized this and quickly set these guys to work on a new IP. See, Disney had apparently been working on starting a new franchise. Something akin to Darkwing Duck, which was doing really well at the time. They wanted to make something that could work on multiple levels. A diverse cast of characters in a new and intriguing setting involving several unique themes. The result? Maui Mallard. A Magnum PI looking duck in the role of a noir-style detective with ninja background, set in a tiki-themed island where we'd encounter voodoo magic, zombies, and pirates. This sounds completely nuts, and undeniably awesome. But although the show never saw the light of day, the game did. Donald and Maui Mallard was developed by Disney Interactive for the Sega Mega Drive and released in Europe in 1995. I did not intend for this to rhyme, by the way. The US didn't see a Genesis release, but 1 year later in 1996, a Super Nintendo version ported by Eurocom Entertainment Software was released worldwide. While still bearing the original title in Europe, the US marketing department suddenly made a last-moment decision to change the title to Maui Mallard in Cold Shadow, removing every trace of Donald from the game. Well, you know, except for his looks. I mean, this is obviously Donald. What do you think, we're fucking idiots? Anyways, this was done because they simply didn't think Donald Duck was popular enough in the US. So they came up with the name Cold Shadow and released the game with its new and hip title. Alright, enough talk, ducklings. Let's fire this thing up! The game starts off with our very own detective Maui Mallard working the case of the missing idol, Shaboom Shaboom. The natives on the island, the Mudrakes, believes that if the idol isn't returned within 3 days, the whole island will blow up. And so our hero sets out to recover the sacred idol and restore peace to the island. Okay, maybe it's just me, but I feel like the game really nails the mood right away. I mean, the Mojo Mansion, the music, the sound effects, the characters, goddamn, the animations. It all just fits together like a perfect jigsaw puzzle. Maui is equipped with a 1935 vintage Westchester big gun, and according to the manual, it works. But just between you and me, it doesn't always work. The big gun shoots all kinds of bugs, and you can even combine different ones to create new and powerful forms of attacks. Pretty original for its time. Speaking of the manual, I really wish this was in color, cause the content is really awesome. Without the colors though, the illustrations looks kinda bland. On the second stage in the game, you get to one of the main features, the ability to change into Ninja Maui. This allows you to fight enemies with a bow staff and swing across the map. Some places also requires you to lock your bow staff between 2 platforms. The whole ninja gimmick is a pretty cool idea, and Maui definitely looks like a badass, but there are some complaints that I'll get back to later. A couple stages are locked to playing as regular Maui, but for the most part, you can swap between them. Ninja Maui requires yin-yang points to use though, so it's often limited how long you'll be able to play as him. That said, yin-yang points will respawn at their original position every 2 minutes or so it's not like it's hard to collect these things. Donald in Maui Mallard has the good fortune of being one of the best looking games on the Mega Drive. Like I've mentioned earlier, Disney put the best team they knew to animate, Creative Capers, and these guys really outdid themselves. Donald looks just as alive as ever, and the same goes for every other character in here too. Actually, all the visuals in the game are incredibly well crafted. I think it's safe to say that they didn't skimp on the details here. Backgrounds look very appealing while at the same time being aware that they shouldn't grab your attention too much. And the foreground objects are super detailed and stylized with that cartoonish approach we would expect from Disney. While we're on the subject of visuals, I guess now would be a good time to take a brief look at the console differences. Now, I think we can agree that the Super Nintendo version is arguably the better looking one. The colors are more vibrant and the details tend to be more fleshed out. But I have to admit that some designs are definitely better on the Sega. I'll use this boss as an example. He looks fucking terrifying! And he acts accordingly. It took me a handful of tries to beat this dude, but when I learned how to deal with him, it was a pretty badass fight. Possibly even my favorite part in the whole game. So maybe that's why I was so disappointed when I went back to the Super Nintendo version. Looks like a fucking dork! And all you do is just attack him straight on. On the Sega, there's some decent strategy involved. There is a few other examples where the Sega designs triumph, but I won't spend too much time comparing these games. There's pros and there's cons to both of them. The soundtrack is unsurprisingly really well done. I mean, coming from Disney, I would expect nothing less. The composer is a little guy named Michael Giacchino. And I gotta be honest, the name didn't really ring a bell at first. But what the fuck? This guy is the shit! He worked on games like Gargoyles, the first Call of Duty and Medal of Honor game, and even the Lost World video game, which is pretty fucking sweet, seeing as he recently composed for Jurassic fucking World. Yeah, this guy's been around the block a few times. He also worked on tons of other amazing movies and TV shows, and I guess Disney really took a liking to this guy, cause he also worked on The Incredibles, Ratatouille, Up, and yeah, even Zootopia. Zootropolis? The fucking movie's got 2 names? What the fuck? The tunes are catchy and well composed, and some will stay with you for days. The Super Nintendo version definitely did a better job at introducing the stages though. I really wish the same introduction track was present in this game. But then again, the Super Nintendo is missing the boss music, which I find highly strange. Without the change in tone when the boss arrives, it just feels like another random part of the stage, you know? In the Super Nintendo's defense, their version definitely have a much more dynamic sound, and is hands down my personal preference. The sound effects too are really well done. I especially like the way Maui's gun sounds. It's such a unique effect that has stayed with me since first playing the game as a kid. Which I guess is good, because this was apparently a bit of a challenge during the development. You see, Disney was understandably wary of having one of their mascots handling a gun. So first off, it was made to just barely resemble one. And on top of that, it obviously couldn't sound like a real gun, so they had to make something else that sounded right. I think they pretty much nailed it. And that same attention to detail can be heard throughout the whole game. Like with the bird calls in the Sega version. Apparently the Sega couldn't handle the sampled bird calls. So one of the sound designers, Patrick J. Collins, created his own bird calls by programming pitch bends on a waveform, which blew the other sound designer away. Okay, so we all know the game looks and sounds good, so let's talk about the issues here. Cause, trust me, there are some nasty issues to be dealt with. As you know, Maui has the ability to magically change into his Asian assassin look. But this skill isn't all it's cracked up to be. His attacks get slower, and he's a lot more jerkier to control. It's just something a little off. At least at first. Then you kinda get used to these controls, and honestly, it's not terrible. But being just barely acceptable isn't much to celebrate either. But here's the problem with being Ninja Maui. You see these hooks here? Yeah, these are for swinging. You jump up and grab the hooks with your bow staff to swing across to other platforms, and that's where the problems start. You need to be very specific when timing this shit. If you're just a fraction of a second too late, you'll get no momentum and fall straight down. And if you're too early, well, then you won't get enough momentum. So here you have a game where you need to be in a very specific position to grab the hook at a very specific point, then let go at a very specific moment, and all of this while controlling a very floaty character. So, yeah, not good. When exploring the stages, you'll come across these treasures, and by collecting most of the treasure on each stage, you get to play the Battle Luau Baby bonus stage. That's a mouthful. You ride a unicycle carrying a few bonus items that you pick up at the starting line. Now, I guess the objective here is to keep as many bonuses as possible and reach the goal. But I've never been able to keep even one of them, so I really wouldn't know. Now, this wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't for the controls being so fucking crazy. Movement is based on momentum, so you need to build speed, but you also need to watch out for the enemies and slow down in time, and yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't call it broken though, I don't think that's the thing, I don't really like this kind of gameplay, I guess. The Super Nintendo version of this stage looks more doable, but I've never tried that one myself, so I really couldn't say. There's one last issue that is highly infuriating. Very often, you'll run a little too close to the enemy and take damage. Yeah, even though you didn't touch him at all. Fuck, even standing a little too close to someone's back can hurt you. That's not fair, man. This will very quickly become a regular pain in your ass, so do me a favor and keep some well-calculated distance at all times. Now, I'm not a stranger to dealing with flawed gameplay. I can easily look past annoying details here and there as long as I find other enjoyable features. But there's one part in the game when all these flaws come together to make up one of the trickiest stages ever. But first, let's catch up with what's happened in between. I guess this would also be a good time for a spoiler alert, so there you go. Just do what you gotta do. You good? Alright. So there's not a whole lot of story here, but early on we meet up with this chick. Her real name is never revealed, and in the manual she's only described as the High Mojo Sorceress, but she's sort of Maui's love interest in the game. I say sort of cause it's not really a thing until you reach the ending. She first warns Maui that he should stay away from the island because he always seems to fuck things up, and thereof hinting at the fact that these characters already have a history. A history that we never get to know, but nonetheless, Maui keeps going. The Mudrakes decides to fight back to keep him out, but yeah. Nothing's keeping this duck out of trouble. Out of Maui's persistence, the Mudrakes eventually decides to test him to see if he's worthy of risking his life to help them. After a few levels, you're bestowed upon the greatest challenge yet. Well, not really, but you're given the task of defeating the Frog. Yeah, that's his name, by the way. Some genius out there must have come up with that shit. The Frog isn't too bad, really. You just need to start off with a good jump. And emphasis on that part, cause you only get one chance. If you fuck it up, you need to do a lot of other bullshit, and it's not very fun. Start off with a jump, then keep throwing bombs into his mouth. As long as you can see the explosion going off inside him, you're good. If not, he won't really take damage. Oh, and don't land on the platforms, or you'll fuck up your elasticity, or your momentum, or whatever. So you beat that fucker, and finally, you're hailed as the warrior you are. The Mudrakes tells you that the only way to find the idol is through their chieftain. Too bad he's fucking dead. Yeah, but no problem, just swim down to the bottom of the sea and retrieve his remains. Honestly, I don't know if we forget him or not, but we do get to fight a giant duckhead though, that's pretty cool. The stage here is also pretty challenging, by the way. Just take a look, cause I can't without clenching my ass so hard that I like pass out and break my head open on a rock. Hey, so we do find him. Well, what's left anyways. Yeah, so this right here, this is the part that I was getting to. Pretty damn challenging if I do say so myself. Okay, come on, fuck! Yes! Fuck! Right, you pricks, take fuck! Fuck! Shit! Motherfucker! Yeah, better put your swear jar away, because it's gonna fill up and you won't afford to eat for the next couple weeks.
Whoa, rough landing.
Seriously? You again? Look, I don't need your help, okay? I'm perfectly able to do this myself. Not like you were much help anyways.
Hey, what the hell, Papa Smurf? Here I am trying to help a nerd in need, and you immediately mistake me for some other genie? You racist.
What? Hang on, so you're not that genie guy from last time?
10 points to Gryffindor. What gave it away, huh? Was it perhaps my previous comment, which so obviously stated the fact?
Okay, I'm confused.
Alright, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say you're pretty new to all this. So first off, let me introduce myself. I'm Hugh, Genie Extraordinaire. And as to how this whole genie thing works, well, it's a pretty funny story, actually. See, it all started around the 80s when this guy...
No, that's fine. I know about the particles and the heat and...
The what now?
Look, I don't have time for an explanation right now, okay? I just want to beat this thing and maybe go make a sandwich and go to bed.
Sure, suit yourself. Now what's the glue, Quackadoo?
So, I'm stuck at this tower part, right? Now, these green fucks, they keep stealing the chieftain from right under my nose. And I keep falling off the fucking map.
Really? You think this is hard? Have you ever jumped the spiders in High Seas Havoc? Dodged the birds and bats in Ninja Gaiden? Or passed the final obstacle in Battletoads Scooter Stage? Man, have you ever even played Silver Surfer? This shit right here, this is a cakewalk.
You gotta be fucking kidding. Are you aware of how floaty and imprecise these controls are? Now, how am I supposed to get to the top when I can't even hit the damn hooks?
Don't be a silly Sally. These controls are flawless. I should know.
And why's that?
I'm a genie!
Right. So, what do I do?
Well, first off, you gotta stop outrunning the jar. Because these green floating heads here, they're gonna snatch that shit up faster than you can say... And at that point, it'll be too far away for you to stop them. Well, without switching back to regular Maui, that is. Not a good idea, by the way.
Good point. What else?
What else? I don't know. Let's see, oh, you got the whole bow staff thing. I mean, swinging around, that's just you being really bad at these awesome and precise controls.
Oh, come on, man. These controls are flawed as fuck. And you know it.
Okay, settle down, cowboy. I'm just yanking your chain. I know they're unfortunate, but that doesn't mean they can't be mastered.
So what you're saying is I just need to master these very jerky controls.
See, now we're making some progress. Oh, and take your time with the hooks, too. It's not a race, you know. Well, okay, it's kind of like a race, but you don't need to rush it. Also, there's an extra life on the stage, too. Could get that by getting ahead, swing yourself over to it, landing on the platform below.
Well, yeah, that's a possibility, but it's not really a sure bet, though, is it?
No, but then again, what is, right? Look, you don't need to go for the extra life, but you absolutely need to use Ninja Maui for what he's worth. I know waving the Westchester big gun around is cool and all, but the bow staff is a much better option in this case. Now that is what I would call a safe bet.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Stay close to the jar, don't rush it, and play as Ninja Maui. Which I kinda need to do anyways, cause, you know, hooks.
Yep, it's like my dad used to say, the obvious solution is usually the right solution.
Well, I guess it's worth a shot.
See ya!
Jesus fuck! Alright, keep calm, stay with the jars. Stay with the jars. Fuck! Oh, no, you don't! Come on, bow staff, don't fail me now. Come on! How far is this level? Yes! Yes! Hell yeah! Holy shit, it worked! That fucking genie was right! You guys saw that shit, right? It's fucking hard! But keep your enthusiasm and hold, we're not quite finished with the game yet. There's also the final boss. Meet the Witch Doctor. He's actually not that hard, but navigating through the stage is yet again pretty tricky. You collect bullets on each side of the map, blast him with all you got, repeat the same step one more time, and then beat him in a close-up fight. The previous stage took me way longer to get through, but that's not saying that this guy is easy, okay? It will more than likely take you quite a few times to get through, but once you do, you can finally cross that shit off your list of games that I never want to endure again. We retrieve the idol for the natives, and Maui saves the day. The sorceress shows up again and speaks rather ironically about the fact that you just saved everyone and that they will name the island after you. Then she leaves just as Maui gets his head out of the ground and... love interest. Maybe. Kind of, I guess. In summary, Donald in Maui Mallard is a unique experience in the way it features themes as dark as you can go in a Disney title and still get to the point of realization. With zombies, skeletons, murderous native tribal ducks, and ninjas. The audio visuals are superb, easily climbing its way to the top 10 best looking games on the system, but when it comes down to the gameplay, the promising title fails to deliver. Sure, you'll eventually get better at using the flawed bow staff and dodging enemies with your annoyingly large hitbox, but you'll only accept these flaws for so long without a couple fucks and shits, and the occasional rage quit. I really wish this game hadn't been as riddled with issues as it is. I mean, if the hitbox problem was fixed and the bow staff swinging was better optimized, this game would have been so much better. It looks amazing, it sounds amazing, and it should feel amazing too. But the cold hard truth is that it just... it doesn't. The question remains, do I think you should pick this game up? Well, that depends. It's not like the game is cheap, but if you can get it at a decent price, which right now would be somewhere below 35 bucks, complete in box, and you're in for a heavy challenge, then sure. But if you're one of those who are easily annoyed with flawed gameplay, then maybe skip this one. That said, there are definitely moments to enjoy here. Every stage looks stunning, the soundtrack is solid, and the animations are superb. And for someone like me who can sit down and enjoy these things for what they are, this game definitely earns its place in my collection. Again, I'm talking about the Mega Drive version. This obviously may or may not apply to the Super Nintendo port. Allegedly, the game eventually got a Genesis release, but only as a downloadable title through the Sega channel. Yeah, I still find it hard to wrap my head around the fact that the Genesis had downloadable games. Weird. A few years later, the game was ported again, this time to the PC. This port is nearly identical to the Sega version, except for the soundtrack, which have been redone to sound more organic. But although the songs are still basically the same, the low-quality orchestral style just makes them sound more washed out. Otherwise, the game looks very close to the original. There is one last port, on the original Game Boy. Yeah, this one, not that great. Listen to the soundtrack this time. Jesus. To be fair though, it actually looks like a pretty damn faithful port. Every stage looks more or less the same. Now, I mean, obviously it looks pretty shit, but the layout is pretty much identical compared to the Sega version. Believe it or not, there was actually a sequel in the works. According to Oliver Wade, one of the animators on the first game, there were even a lot of animation done for the game. Patrick J. Collins also mentions that the reason the first game never became a hit was because of poor marketing, and I guess that's why the game never came to be. The demand just wasn't there because not enough people knew about the first game. There's a handful of artwork available online that shows a few of the returning characters and even new enemies. Other than that, there's not a whole lot of info on what the game would have been like. Now, I personally think the first game had a lot going for it, and I would have loved to see what they could have done with the sequel, but I guess for now, we can only imagine. Well, I guess that's it. It's been a radical evening, guys, but if you don't mind, Yeah. Where the game changes its rules. This is it. When you die here, you won't get a second chance to get right into the boss fight. No, you need to go through this screen of death first. Which is really fucking annoying, by the way. I swear, there is no way to get through this stage unharmed. Look at this! On each side, there's one of these guys stabbing endlessly with a sword. If you jump up there, you're gonna get hit. And it's the only way to progress through the level! It's like the designers thought, oh, but it's the last level, it's gotta be hard. And I agree, but there are ways to do this without it being a game of chance. The chance being that you have a fully upgraded weapon and shuriken equipped, which I guess is theoretically possible as you can pick up the shuriken right before the scrolling starts, but like I said, you also need to have your weapon fully upgraded, and keeping those upgrades isn't the easiest thing in the goddamn world.